Well, the one story I guess that comes to mind to me, like I said, I spent a lot of the time flying over the waters, and one day I noticed when we took off that he took a pen and wrote right in the palm of his hand. I said, "What are you writing?" He says, "Well, I can only stay up for an hour, so I always write the time that we take off." So he knew when we had to put it down. And he also told me, "John, I hate to tell you this, but I really don't like flying over water." Well, we spent 5 days straight flying over water, and while I was shooting video for Channel 9, Perry was taking stills, and I think the newspaper used some, and I'm sure they were using other ways. So he was really good with the helicopter, and it was interesting to get the aerial view. And I always remember the first day we went up, coming down the river, and the first thing that struck me was all the houseboats from the Ellis Harbor. Not all of them, but a lot of them were just piled up against the train bridge across from Quaker Oats. And then another image I'll always remember from the air is the Czech and Slovak Museum being surrounded by water, this beautiful, fairly new building surrounded by water down there. And those images kind of stand out.
We had no water, of course, here, and so we had porta potties up on our parking ramp. And a couple of the guys, no names, thought it'd be funny when one of the other guys was in the porta potty to start shaking it. And that was quite humorous. And luckily it wasn't me in there.
Definitely for me, it was when we had to vacate the studio and set up a remote newscast right by the water's edge. And in order to do a live broadcast back in 2008, you had to have a news vehicle that had live capabilities. They had to do that because they had to switch out some generator stuff back here at the station. So we were, on folding chairs right next to where the water had flooded on 2nd Avenue, and that was right at the railroad tracks. And we were trying to explain to people why we were outside, and I said, so essentially we're bringing you a newscast live in a van down by the river. And I knew it was a reference to Chris Farley and Saturday Night Live, and inside my head I thought, oh, a moment of levity. And then I thought, don't be funny, this is such a grave scenario, nobody is laughing, everybody's crying. And my email exploded with people saying, thank you for just having a second where I'm not watching my television horror, where I remember we can still laugh occasionally, and we can still find joy, and we can still smile even through this emergency situation. And I still have people say to me, do you remember when you made that comment about a van down by the river? Like, yes, I do. I'm glad that it didn't make you mad.
Well, nobody's probably ever heard about one of our sales guys and the monster cookie, because at the time I was in the process of trying to get my AMS seal. I wound up getting it that year, and I had to step out. I took my lunch break, which we really didn't have much of one during the coverage, but stepped out for about an hour to go take my test. Came back, you had no power. We're on generator, and all of a sudden, Steve Lake, our sales guy, I'm walking up the entry ramp to go into the newsroom, and he hands me this huge cookie, and he goes, Kai, you're going to need this. This is like the biggest cookie I've ever seen in my life, and I don't even know where they came from. But the thing about it that was great about our managers is that, there was food out there, because it was actually unsafe to travel around town. So they would get food to come into us. But the fact that I ran on a monster cookie for 6-7 hours from Steve upstairs, that's what got me through that afternoon. And eventually I ate something that night. I don't remember what it was, but I eventually ate something that night. So it was a pretty continuous flow of information and people, and I was still learning some of our sales staff, quite honestly, because I was only a year here. I didn't know anybody as well as I know them now. And so I had barely met Steve before, and he reaches out and gives me this dinner plate sized monster cookie to keep me rolling. You're going to need this. I said, oh, thank you. He says, okay. And I just walked by, and that was it. That's all there was to it.
Well, I'll tell one story. It's about a photographer who is no longer with us, but did quite a bit of the flood coverage. And this was after the flood, and they were checking the areas of downtown where the electrical lines go. They're called vaults. They're in the street. And I didn't know he was claustrophobic. And so we were needing to go and show what they were doing in these vaults below street where the power lines, connect and do things like that. And he wouldn't go down in the pit. So he gave me the camera and said, you go down there, because he felt closed in. And so that was, I had to go shoot some video for him because he just didn't want to get down in that confined space. He wasn't happy with that.
And I'm filming and it just starts raining. And I had camera gear to keep it from getting wet, and there's nothing I could do. It just was raining so hard that my camera was going out. It got waterlogged. And so then when we got to the Central Fire Station, my camera is just barely working, and I'm getting video of them going up to the fire station, and they're trying to find some place to get into, but the water is so high. The boat is under like the roof awning, and I had to lay down in the boat because there was no room for me. So I'm laying, and you can see my knees in my shot, and I'm getting shots of the firefighter with a crowbar or something, and he's smashing windows, trying to find out if they can get in, and then my camera dies. And then the thing that got missed because of that was they probably don't want me telling this, but they rammed the doors to the fire engines where they put the fire trucks through. They rammed the doors with the boats, and glass went flying over us. And I remember looking at Justin going, I cannot believe that we are in this situation. This is crazy. And yeah, the Central Fire Station is what I will always remember.
At one point, Bruce and I had a break because I'm sure weather didn't extended coverage, thank goodness for weather, so we could, have a moment. We went outside and we sat down on one of the benches and just watched the silence of downtown Cedar Rapids mid-June and shared a banana. And it was very peaceful, and it was very sad. And we kind of let ourselves have emotions that we tried not to have on the set. And it was just Beth and Bruce on a bench in downtown Cedar Rapids with their banana.